Skol Vikes, what's up everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Vikings Spin. I'm your host Jason, and we got a jam-packed show for you tonight. We are going to be discussing the Vikings postseason bye week, as well as a regular season recap and other team news that's gone on during the bye week. We're going to also do a little bit, since we didn't have a Vikings-Bears post game, we're going to break that down as well, go over some season milestones, which we're going to get to first. Kind of an unsung hero for the Vikings was punter Ryan Quigley. He had 0 touchbacks on the season and was pretty much the king of the coffin corner, burying teams deep in their own territory all season for the Vikings, allowing the team to flip field position, let the defense get some quick stops, get the ball back to the offense with good field position. It's a really underrated aspect of the game, but wanted to give a shout out to Ryan Quigley for that. He's been an excellent addition to this team all season long. Adam Thielen, giving him a shout out for getting over 90 receptions. That helped him earn some incentives in his contract. So hats off to him. He's been outstanding. And Stephon Diggs, finishing the season now. With Stephon Diggs racking up the numbers he did this season, he has now become the fastest Viking in team history to get to 200 receptions in his career. So Diggs has gotten to 200 receptions in just his first 3 seasons in the league. That is outstanding. Case Keenum had 8 games this season of a 100-plus passer rating or more. And that's tied for second in team history. He was also the number 1 rated quarterback in the NFL outside the pocket and finished with ESPN's number 2 overall QBR for NFL quarterbacks. The Jet, Jerick McKinnon, got to the 500 club for getting over 500 yards rushing and 500 yards receiving. Pro Football Focus ranked Harrison Smith as the number 1 overall safety in the NFL this season. I have no doubt that Harrison Smith will be voted an All-Pro when the voting comes set for that. The Vikings also had a number of players ranked by Pro Football Focus in the top 20 at their positions, including David Morgan, number 7 at tight end, number 8 overall for C.J. Ham at fullback, number 10 overall for Everson Griffin at edge rusher, number 10 overall for Case Keenum at quarterback, number 10 overall for Andrew Sendejo at safety, number 10 overall for Stephon Diggs at wide receiver, number 11 overall at wide receiver for Adam Thielen, number 12 overall at tight end for Kyle Rudolph, number 13 overall for defensive tackle for Linval Joseph, number 16 overall at running back for Jerick McKinnon, number 18 overall for outside linebacker with Anthony Barr, and Joe Berger got number 18 overall at offensive guard. The Vikings team finished 13-3 this season, their second best regular season mark in team history, and the Vikings defense finished number 1 overall in the NFL. That's for both points and yardage, and the offense ranked 10th in scoring. And as we've alluded to before, 14 of the 26 teams that have had a top 10 offense and defense have gotten to the Super Bowl, so that's more than half. A very good omen for the Vikings going forward. A recap of the Chicago Bears game. The Vikings won that game 23-10, clinched a first-round bye and the number 2 seed. In doing so, improved to 13-3. The Bears dropped to 5-11. Latavius Murray led the way with 100 plus rushing yards and 2 touchdowns in a dominant performance. The Vikings reshuffled offensive line with Pat Elflein out. They had to move Joe Berger back over to center. They had to slide Mike Remmers from right tackle to right guard and inserted Rashad Hill in at right tackle. They played great against a top 10 Chicago defensive front. Keenum had a touchdown pass to Diggs in the ball game. The defense was phenomenal once again. Now in their last 12 quarters, they've only allowed 1 touchdown. So that is just, they are just playing some outstanding football, historic football, really. Ryan Quigley had a strong game punting, pinning the Bears deep in their own territory numerous times during the game. And Adam Thielen did what he needed to do. He needed to get at least 5 receptions to go over 90 for the season, and he got 6 in the game. So a very successful closeout of the regular season there for the Vikings. The Vikings now end the regular season on a 3-game winning streak that they bring into the playoffs. And also, if you go back previous to that, the one loss there to Carolina was preceded by an 8-game Vikings winning streak after week 4. So they won 8 in a row, lost 1, and then started another 3-game winning streak, which means they've won 11 of their last 12 games. So the Vikings are red hot going in here to the postseason, trying to make history and be the first team to not only play a Super Bowl in their home stadium, but also win it all. And that brings us to some team news. The Vikings had both George Edwards and Pat Shurmur, their coordinators. Shurmur, the offensive coordinator, Edwards, the defensive coordinator, get interview requests from other teams. The Bears interested in George Edwards. The Bears also interested in Pat Shurmur, as well as the Giants, Cardinals, and Lions also being interested in Pat Shurmur. Mike Zimmer has granted permission for those teams to interview his coordinators, only on his terms, though, on his specific days, and only during this week, which is the bye week. They will not be able to interview after that. They also have to come to Minnesota to interview them, so that makes sure that the coordinators are not taken away from the team, and so that it minimizes the distraction and doesn't take away from game preparation. In other team news, quarterback Sam Bradford returned to practice, and now he has practiced 2 days in a row. According to teammates, he looks very good. That, according to Jarius Wright, Adam Thielen, Kyle Rudolph, and Case Keenum, who all said that they were impressed by the way Sam has looked in practice. I saw a video of him in practice, and he definitely looks more like the guy that we saw in Week 1 than the guy that we saw against the Bears in Week 5. And I remember the practice videos coming out for that too. It's really just night and day. He's moving around very well. The Vikings they could activate him here for the playoff run. They'll have a 3-week window from the end of the regular season to decide to do that. If they do that, the Vikings are going to have the envy of the league in terms of the quarterback depth chart going into the playoffs with Keenum, Bradford, and Bridgewater. I don't think any other team can say that. If any other playoff team were to sustain an injury at quarterback, that might be it for them. With the Vikings, that is certainly not the case, as they're going to get all these guys healthy at the right time. Also trying to get healthy, Pat Elflein, he returned to practice this week on a limited basis, which is a great sign because he didn't practice at all prior to the Bears game. But he's back practicing again. Tremaine Brock is also trying to get healthy, as well as Kyle Rudolph, Xavier Rhodes, Mackenzie Alexander, and Shamar Stephen. Now, Rudolph, Rhodes, Alexander, and Stefan did not practice so far this week, but it's worth noting that Kyle Rudolph said that nothing is going to keep him from being out there in these playoff games, so I expect them all back actually next week. Because if you look at the injuries, like with Xavier Rhodes, he was able to finish the game against the Bears. He didn't go in for any testing or x-rays or anything like that, so I think this is just a precaution to get these guys as fresh, their bodies as fresh and as healthy as they can possibly be, going into the playoffs here. The divisional round, is going to be coming up, and the Vikings are going to have to sit back and watch the wild card weekend, to see, who they're going to play. And that's been a question that's been asked quite a bit by a lot of fans on social media, and I'll kind of break it down here so that it becomes much easier to figure out. Basically, the Vikings have locked up the number 2 seed. So what that means is they've got a first-round bye during wild card weekend, and they're going to play the highest seed that emerges from the wild card round. And so what you have right now is the Vikings looking at, you have the Rams at the number 3 seed against the Falcons at the number 6 seed, and then you have the Saints at number 4 taking on the Panthers, who are number 5 seed. So basically, to simplify it, if the Rams win, they play the Vikings, because there's no way that anyone else could emerge higher than the number 3 seed. If the Falcons upset the Rams, then the Vikings would play the winner of the Saints-Panthers game, because nobody could be lower than the Falcons at the number 6 seed. So that kind of simplifies it there for us. And now, if you want to take a look at the Vikings, it's incredible that they got to 13-3 and got themselves in that position to get a first-round bye. Let's take a look back at all the different games here and some of the moments in each of these games where the Vikings got to 13-3. I'm going to pull that up here from Vikings.com. Very cool how they recapped the regular season in each week, and I'll kind of navigate us through that here. So we'll listen into the sound effects here from every regular season game that the Vikings played to get themselves, into this position here with a first-round bye, during Wild Card Weekend. So let's go ahead and pull that up. Week 1. Week 2. Week 3. Week 4. Week 5.
Well, they got a call from the coaches in Canada to come up there. Nice catch. Is he in bounds? Yes, Michael Floyd with his first catch as a Minnesota Viking.
Week 6.
Last game of the year, Matt Flynn for over 400 yards. Catch that was.
Week 7.
Murray running room. Left side, 10, 5, touchdown.
Week 8.
Lots of time. End zone. Leaping grab by Kyle Rudolph. Touchdown.
Week 10.
First down the 6. Here's Keenum back to pass. Letting it fly. Diggs is open. He's got it. Savant Diggs down for the red zone. And he's down just shy. They're going to mark him down inside the 2.
Week 11. Week 12.
Keenum out of the gun. He's got the football. Blitz comes. Keenum hits his throws. Got a man room
13.
Looking, lofting, end zone, Rudolph, touchdown!
Week 14.
On second down with a 2-by-2 set. Keenum slings it over the middle. It is complete to Thielen. Thielen at the 30. Pulls away 20. Angling right to the 10. And a touchdown.
Week 15.
Dalton seconds and throws. Intercepted. Picked off by Kendricks. Eric Kendricks looking for the angle. Dives to the end zone. Touchdown, Vikings.
Week 16.
Humphrey tries to keep the lock and has that picked at the 48-yard line by Smith. Harrison with his second pick tonight.
Week 17.
Fires in.
So there you have it. There's the all the games there from the regular season that got us to this point. And here we are going forward in the playoffs. So that's all I have for this week. But definitely stay tuned. Next week, after the wild card weekend is over, we'll have another edition of Vikings Spin, and we'll go ahead and be able to preview who the Vikings are going to be playing here in the divisional round. So thank you guys so much for joining me for another edition of Vikings Spin. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, subscribe, and we'll see you next time. So long.